Happy July 4th. It's the Garage Orloff Show. It's kind of weird. I don't see any flags flying anywhere on people's houses. Well, actually, I saw one house that had some little bitty flags out, but we've had our flags out through several presidential administrations and haven't taken them down, but yeah, nobody's got flags out. But the White House says that we all are saving 16 cents this year on our 4th of July cookout expenses. So if we're having a little cookout in the backyard, feeding about 6 to 8 people, we're saving 16 cents at the supermarket compared to last year. But they don't mention the year before, 2019, we're paying much, much more. And and we're paying a lot more for lumber, like a lot more, like several times more for lumber, and gasoline went up. And I just bought a breakfast meal at Sonic. I paid, that just went up $1. It used to be like a little bit over $5. Now it's $6.12 I just paid. So my breakfast burrito, tater tots, and Route 44 Dr. Pepper has gone up $1. So, but other than that, things are wonderful, right? So, well, you know, I'm thinking about things, and comic books are a big part of this channel and the Garage Orloff Show, but honestly, I've got a lot of other interests, and I want to, this channel, I'm going to have more and more shows where it isn't just comic books, but I really want to, I guess, the way I've talked about this before, the way I look at the world, there is something that I call, and maybe I got it from someone else, but I call it rock and roll culture. It's what kids are into, and in a certain time period. And so the time periods that I really collect the most, the 50s and 60s, you know, kids are into Monsters, they're into Mad Magazine, humor magazines, they're into comic books, they're into rock and roll, various kinds of rock and roll, they're into bubblegum cards and movies and movie posters and television shows and cartoons and toys and robots and plastic play sets, you know, with cowboys and Indians and pin-up girls and basically everything that your parents throw away when you go off to college or when you join the army, or that they just throw away because they think it's inappropriate, or your teacher takes up from you if you bring it to school and sends you to the principal. These are the things that I love and that I collect. So I realize, you know, as I'm going through comics, and that a lot of the comics that I read religiously, Spider-Man, Fantastic Four, X-Men, I just kind of stopped buying them there in the late 80s, definitely before the 90s. And I thought, well, and I've been saying, well, that's when I met a bunch of friends, and we were hanging out, and I had other things to spend money on, and they were movie poster collectors, and they kind of got me more into that because I found out places where I could go to buy movie posters and stills, and then, but it was, and so I remember I always went to comic stores buying the old comics, but the new comics, I kind of got out of it for the most part, although I still bought some. and I always, but I never thought, well, I just stopped buying comics. I never even realized that I did. It was just a gradual thing, because I was buying other things like movie posters and records and rock and roll and memorabilia. But I never really thought, well, I'm out of it. I'm out of the collecting. No, because I was still into the same thing. To me, I can't distinguish between a comic book and the music that was playing on the radio at the time that comic came out. One thing I dearly love is old radio air checks, where you actually hear the DJs introducing the records, and you hear the commercials and the news breaks. I collect old air checks. That's DJs would record themselves to use kind of like a resume, so they can get jobs at other stations around the U.S. And sometimes radio stations would send people to other parts of the country, and they would record other DJs off the air and then take them back, and they would imitate. Actually, KLIF, which is now a news talk station here, KLIF was 1190 in Dallas, or Oak Cliff, which is a suburb of Dallas, was the station that kind of invented Top 40 radio and the sound that we associate with it from the 60s and 70s. And all these stations still try to emulate that format with the jingles and the singers that all came from Pam's studio in Dallas, and that studio is still open. They still record jingles that sound like the old ones for your radio stations. But anyway, I love old radio air checks, and I listen to them, and it's just the coolest thing, because you put on an old radio air check, it's like you're listening to the radio in 1963 or 1965 or 1967. Oh, and sometimes kids or people, that had reel-to-reel recorders back in the 50s and 60s would record off the air. So some air checks are from home tapers. Anyway, you can get a lot of that stuff on the internet and on YouTube, but to me, that's the perfect soundtrack to to reading comic books from that time period. And damn, so one of my holy grails is going to be here at the house in a couple of days, which is Fantastic Four Annual number 1 from 1963, the first annual from Fantastic Four. And I really want to thank Eric Brain, who let me know that his store in Kentucky had a copy, so I got that the other day. I paid for it. It's on the way, and I'll have a big unboxing of that when it arrives in a couple of days, so that'll be fun. I don't know if tomorrow's a holiday. Today's July 4th, it's a Sunday, so I don't know if that means tomorrow is the 5th. On Monday is a bank and postal holiday, but anyway, what do I know? Yeah, it's just weird that there are no flags flying, because I love this country. I'm embarrassed by the country right now, but I think we'll pull out of this. El Pulpo, I think we're in a rough time. Definitely an existential crisis for the United States. But I think they've got to wise up and realize what's going on. I don't see how much your head has to be buried in the sand. I mean, you have to put gas in your tank, unless you're a 12-year-old and you ride a bike and you don't. I think even then you'd feel the expense of all the prices going up. I certainly felt it in the 70s when inflation was running wild, just in the prices of comic books and everything else that I bought. Yeah, and I realize I've got to stop putting music on my station because it's. I wasn't realizing that it's keeping all of my precious videos from ever being monetized someday when I have 1,000 subscribers, which will never happen. I can't even see myself getting to 300. I think I've kind of maxed out as far as viewers, because, well, what I'll do is I'll get someone subscribed and then I'll immediately offend somebody and then I'll lose a subscriber. So it's like for every subscriber I get someone, because I'll like insult CGC, you know, and they might have just sent a bunch of comics off to be slabbed, and I'll talk about how stupid that is. And then, you know, I'll talk about Democrats, and that may insult them. And then, yeah, I just tend to be, sometimes I talk in hyperbole, like everybody that voted that way is an idiot. And of course, that's not true, but I talk in hyperbole. You know, Joe Biden likes to use that word hyperbole because he learned that word. It's a fancy word. Existential's a fancy word too. But yeah, words are cool, man. It shows how smart you are. There's a flag there, but that flag is always there. I'm talking about flags that are put out for July 4th, man. That's just you see, they used to have real tall signs with big arrows pointing at the business back in the 50s, and then people said this is all a blight, an urban blight, all these big signs. So they made sign ordinances in a lot of towns where you couldn't have signs taller than a certain height, right? So people had to, because they wanted to beautify the cities, but they had no restriction on how high you could fly the flag. So a lot of people, especially car dealerships along highways, put gigantic flags, like super high, almost so high that a plane would clip it. And then they would, you know, in their ads say, look for the big flags, you know, that's where our dealership is. And so what you wind up with is real tall poles with flags and signs that are short and stubby. Another thing I hate about today, more than anything, is the lack, oh shit, I could have made that, is the lack of fucking neon signs, man. Neon signs, ladies and gentlemen. Holy shit. Why are all those cars there? What is going on? What? There's a bunch of people waiting there 30 minutes early to get in the store. That is strange, very strange indeed. Well, what was I talking about? Am I still recording? Yes, I am. Neon signs, man. All gone. People now have these plastic signs with fluorescent tubes behind them, but the world was sure prettier when I was real little. I remember just driving down the main street of San Antonio. It looked like Las Vegas. All the neon signs, all cities looked like Las Vegas. So, weird. There's people waiting to get in the store. Lots of people want to sell Pokemon cards. They'll come in and they'll say, well, I've got all these Pokemon cards. And it's like, well, we're not really buying any because we've got thousands, really millions. But I'll look at them anyway. And a lot of them are bootleg. But I've had this since the 1990s, yeah. But in the 1990s, they were popular. And at flea markets, like that sleazy one I went to yesterday, they would sell bootleg cards, and so that's hard for people to wrap their heads around the fact that since their childhood they've had bootleg cards. They weren't legitimate. Or they'll want to believe that the Superman #1 that they just picked up for $5 is a real legitimate copy of Superman #1, and it's going to get them $1 million when it's the famous first edition from DC that's, you know, like a Treasury edition is what Marvel called them, the big tabloid-sized square-bound 1970s comics. People don't get it, man. People tear the cardboard covers off and it looks like the original comic, except with the ads and everything. It's just, and I asked this guy that came in, was it the size of like a Life magazine? He says, oh yeah. I said, well then that's a reprint. He says, no, I had it authenticated by an expert. You know, like some crackhead in the street. Man, last night I went to Kroger, and as I'm coming out, this guy rides up to me on a child's bicycle. Looks honestly exactly like Hunter S. Thompson. Like, you know, exactly like Hunter S. Thompson. Even sounded a little like him, and he was saying, "Excuse me, sir. The reason I'm stopping you on this fine evening, I know you're wondering why, is I'm homeless currently," and then he crossed himself, and but thank the Lord, but I have $5 or $6 and I'm saving up for a motel room, and I was just wondering if you had any cash. Like, and I said, nah, I just use my debit card in the store. But I said, you know, there is Mission Arlington, which is some homeless shelter here in town, you know. And he says, oh yes, I know about it. Thank you. And he kind of went off. But the thing about this Hunter S. Thompson clone is, like, his fingers were like gone. Most of his fingers like gone down to the first down to the second knuckle, like he was a leper. I'm not sure what that guy's condition was. This is a big, thick drink. It's mostly ice. There's a little town nestled within Grotuville called Pantego. Totally surrounded by Grotuville. They never wanted to become part of Grotuville, so they kept themselves a little town. And they have their police. And when you go into Pantego, you have to go down a hill, so your car speeds up a little bit, and then the speed limit's lower in Pantego, so that's where they snag a lot of people. That's where they make a lot of their money, is getting speeders. And then there's a junior high school within Pantego, and you stop at a stoplight in the middle of the school zone for a long time. They've got it timed where it goes forever, and then when you start back up, a lot of people forget they're still in a school zone, and the police will get them there. So it's a speed trap. But they also have their own water supply, and so their water tastes very foul. And when you're drinking something of theirs from a fine restaurant like Sonic, when you get down, the ice starts melting. It starts to taste like sewage. And speaking of sewage, yeah, Joe Biden. Anyway, so this tower here, that lovely tower, that's probably a 5G tower, and it's irradiating me right now, which is causing me to speak in an erratic, weird manner, and killing my brain cells. Okay, so it's 11:39 in the AM. I guess I'm going to get out of the car because it'll be less hot outside of the car. Take that. I gotta guzzle this water because if I leave it in the car, it's gonna get boiling and become unpotable. Tomorrow I think I'm gonna go to the Veterans Cemetery and visit my parents and my older brother. I should go today, but I gotta work. And it's gonna be super crowded on July 4th because it's a Veterans Cemetery. July 5th, everyone's going to forget about their relatives, so that's the time I'll go. Haven't been there in too long. Okay, I got my charging cube. Yeah, so my shoes are falling apart. I seriously, like Charlie Chaplin. I gotta get new shoes. I mean, really, it's embarrassing. I should have, that guy on the bike yesterday, I should have said, hey, do you see these shoes? You think you're asking the right guy for money? Of course, I do have a car and he's on a child's bike, so that would probably be his retort to me. So we got Iron Man. Not colored correctly, but I guess he's gray now or something. I guess this Black Panther's pretty well done here. I guess so. Someone singing over there? Cost Plus Supermarket. Nice place. There's a Todd McFarlane kind of Spider-Man, I guess. He's Thanos. I guess he's snapping his fingers. There's the lavendaria. They used to call them laundromates when I was a kid, but now they're lavendarias. There's the Hulk. Really terrible Superman. This Wolverine. Really odd. I feel like this is the drawings that would, the paintings that would be on the side of a carnival ride, you know, like at a really cheap carnival. There's Jean Grey. Oh, she's shooting Magneto, I see, with her blast. Oh, all those cars that were parked here are now gone. Oh, well. C'est la vie. I will talk to you guys later.